My name is Sally, and this is Pygmalion. If you were to ask the region of Amethyst whether mines are so rich, whether it had wanted those women, the Periphetes, you would be laughed at, as if you had asked whether it had wanted those men, whose horned heads had earned them the name Ceriste. An altar to Zeus, god of hospitality, stood at the doors of the Ceriste, soaked, a stranger would assume, with the blood of the humbly sacrificed suckling calves and the new lambs of Amethyst. Wrong. They butchered their guests. Venus was so revolted to see offered such a desecrated fare, she vowed to desert Ophusa and her favourite cities, but she paused. The cities, she reasoned, and the place I love. What crimes have those innocents committed? Why should I punish all for a few? Let me pick out the guilty and banish or kill them, or sentence them to some fate, not quite either, but a dire part of both. The fate for such, I think, is to become some vile thing not themselves. The horns of the Ceriste suggested one quick solution for all. Those men became bullocks. As for the others, the Periphetes, fools who denied Venus her divinity, she stripped off their good names and their undergarments and made them whores. As those women hardened, dulled by shame, delighting to make oaths before the gods in heaven, of their every lie, their features hardened like their hearts, soon they shrank, to split off heartless, treacherous hardness, of sharp shards of flint. The spectacle of those cursed women sent Pygmalion the sculptor slightly mad. He adored women, but he saw the wickedness of these particular women transform, as by some occult connection, every woman's uterus to a spider. Her face, voice, gestures, hair became its web. Her perfume was a floating horror. Her glance left a spider bite. He couldn't control it. So he lived in solitary confinement of a phobia, shunning living women, wifeless. Yet still he dreamed of women. He dreamed unbrokenly, awake as asleep, the perfect body of a perfect woman, though this dream was not so much the dream of a perfect woman as a spectre, sick of unbeing, that had taken possession of his body to find herself alive. She moved into his hands. She took possession of his fingers, and he began to sculpt a perfect woman. So he watched his hand shaping a woman as if he was still asleep, until, life-sized ivory as if alive, her perfect figure lay in his studio. So he had made a woman, lovelier than any living woman, and when he gazed at her, as if coming awake, he fell in love. His own art amazed him. She was so real. She might have moved, he thought, only her modesty, her sole garment, invisible, woven from the fabric of his dream, held her as if slightly ashamed of stepping into life. Then his love for this woman, so palpably a woman, became his life. Incessantly now he caressed her, searching for the warmth of living flesh. His fingertip whirls filtered out, every feel a mere ivory. He kissed her, closing his eyes to divine an answering kiss of life in her perfect lips, and he would not have believed they were after all only ivory. He spoke to her, he stroked her, lightly feeling her living aura, soft as down over her whiteness, his fingers gripping her hand. To feel flesh yield under the pressure that half wanted to bruise her into proof of a life, and half did not want to hurt her or mar, or at least of all find the solid ivory he had made her. He flattered her, he brought her love gifts, knick-knacks, speckled shells, gem pebbles, little rainbow birds in pretty cages, flowers, pendants, drops of amber. He dressed her in the fashion of the moment, set costly rings on her cold fingers, hung pearls in her ears and coiled ropes of pearl to drape her ivory breasts. Did any of this add to her beauty? Gazing at her adorned, his head ached, but then he stripped everything off her, and his brain swam, his eyes dazzled to contemplate the greater beauty of her naked beauty. He laid her on his couch, bedded her in pillows, and soft sumptuous weaves of Tyrian purple, as if she might delight in the luxury. Then, lying beside her, he embraced her, and whispered in her ear every endearment. The day came for the festival of Venus, an uproar of processions through all Cyprus. Snowy heifers, horns gilded, kneeled under the axe at the altars. Pygmalion had completed his offerings, and now he prayed, watching the smoke of incense hum shapelessly upwards. He hardly dared to think what he truly wanted, as he formed the words, "O Venus, your gods have power to give whatever you please. O Venus, send me a wife, and let her resemble." He was afraid to ask for his ivy woman's very self. "Let her resemble the woman I have carved in ivory." Venus was listening to a million murmurs all over the island. She swelled in the uplift of incense, like a great fish suddenly bulging into a tide-freshened pool. She heard every word Pygmalion had not dared to pronounce. She came near, she poised above him, and the altar fires drank her assent like a richer fuel. They flared up 3 times, tossing horns of flame. Pygmalion hurried away home to his ivory possession. He burst in, fevered with deprivation, fell on her, embraced her and kissed her like one collapsing in a desert, to drink at a dribble from a rock. But his hand sprang off her breast, as if stung. He lowered it again, incredulous at the softness, the warmth under his fingers. Warm and soft as warm soft wax, but alive with the elastic of life. He knew, giddy as he was with longing and prayers, that this must be a hallucination. He jerked himself back to his senses, and he prodded the ivory. He squeezed it, but it was no longer ivory. A pulse throbbed under his thumb. Then Pygmalion's legs gave beneath him. On his knees, he sobbed to thank Venus, and there pressed his lips on lips that were alive. She woke to his kisses and blushed to find herself kissing one who kissed her, and opened her eyes for the first time to the light and her lover together. Venus blessed the wedding that she had so artfully arranged, and after 9 moons, Pygmalion's bride bore the child Paphos, who gave his name to the whole island.